Well, hello everybody and welcome to RBWM's Summer Reading Challenge Author Special. Jeanette and I are here with the wonderful Michelle Harrison. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, not too bad. I'm just expecting cat interruptions any moment, but yeah, we'll muddle through and see what happens.
That's absolutely fine. So, which part of the world are you in at the moment? Whereabouts are you?
I'm in Essex. Well, it has been very sunny. It's not at the moment. It's a bit cloudy, but yeah, back at home in Essex in my bedroom because I normally work in my conservatory, but it's a bit noisy at the moment because my 6-year-old's home from school and the neighbours are all in the gardens and things. So yeah, retired to the bedroom.
It's tricky at the moment. How is life in lockdown treating you? Has it been okay?
It's not too bad. I've been kind of muddling through, but I've been doing little bits of work here and there. But I've been kind of fitting it all around having my little one home from school. So failing miserably at the homeschooling because he just doesn't see me as a teacher. But yeah, just kind of with the routine's gone out the window and everything. But yeah, we're getting bits and pieces done gradually.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out of your schedule to help us. Of course, it is the Summer Reading Challenge at the moment, and we're trying to get some content out there to try and infuse children to get reading. And as you are one of our favourite authors, we thought you would be a good place to start. So if that's okay, we're going to ask you some questions. I think, Jeanette, you're going to start us off.
So we just want to kick off really with, how did your writing career begin? How did you become to be an author?
I guess it began, with a lot of hard work and perseverance. I started writing short stories when I was a teenager, and that's a really good place to start because it gives you practice on finishing what you start and doing stories with a strong beginning, middle and end. And it was something that I carried on with, not so much while I was at college, so I was too busy going out and having a good time. But then when I finished college, I thought, right, actually I need to kind of crack on now, and if this is really what I want to do with my life, then I need to actually write a book. So obviously I had other jobs at the time because, when you haven't published any books, you can't make any money from it. Yeah, so I was writing my first book. It was all round other jobs, really. So at the time, I think I had a job in a bar. So I was kind of doing my bar work and sneakily writing bits of my story in quiet moments behind the bar and on my days off. And actually, I was kind of writing that book. That was my first book for about 5 years, which was The 13 Treasures.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of a matter of working it around other things. And it took me about a year to write the first draft, and then after that, I was making changes to it and sending it out to publishers and agents. So it took me quite a long time, really. I had quite a lot of rejections, probably about 25 in total. And it takes quite a long time to sort of hear back from the publishers as well. It normally takes about 2 or 3 months at least. So you kind of feel like you're in limbo for a lot of that time. And then, you wait all that time and then you end up getting a rejection. So yeah, there were a few times I had like a bit of a sulk about it and thought, oh, I must be a bit rubbish, I'm going to give up. And then, a couple of weeks later, I think, no, let's do this, let's carry on. So yeah,
a lot
of hard work. It does, yeah. I think you have to sort of develop quite a thick skin to carry on.
That's sort of me on to my next question, really, because I was going to ask you, when you were first starting out, you explained that you were doing part-time work and writing. Were there parts of it that were easier to write than others? Like, how did you sort of begin, or did you start at the beginning and go through to the end, or how do you start to put a story together?
Yeah, I mean, I generally work sort of in order of the story, but I mean, there are always parts. Usually I find it's the middle of a book that's the tricky bit, because that's the bit where it starts to feel a lot more like work, because when you start a story, it's all nice and shiny and new and you're kind of very into it. And then, I don't know, there's something about the middle of books that it's, you start to realise, oh, actually, I've got to kind of finish this now, and you might get other ideas that seem really appealing. You think, oh, actually, I want to work on that, but you can't. You've got to finish what you're working on. I actually had that the other day, so I had a shiny new idea, and I let myself write a tiny bit of it, which I shouldn't really have done. Yeah, I mean, I find that a good way to kind of combat that is to, if there's something else that you're looking forward to writing about in your story that you should be working on, is to write a little bit of the story from further down the line. So in my first book, I think I was about 12 chapters into my first book, and it was all feeling a bit kind of overwhelming, and there was a particular point of the story that I knew was going to happen, and I thought, I really can't wait to get to that bit, and I think I was a bit stuck with what I was on at that point. So I actually wrote the bit that I was looking forward to. So sometimes I will kind of jump ahead and write a little bit. So in A Sprinkle of Sorcery, which is my latest book, there's actually a story within a story. So there's sort of like a folk tale that runs through the story in 3 sections. And I got a little bit stuck about halfway through the book, and I knew that this story was going to be included. So I actually stopped writing the main narrative with the Widdowson sisters and wrote this folk story. And it was a really nice little break, actually. It kind of gave me my mojo back. So I think, you know, if you can do little tricks like that, it helps to keep you going. But generally I write in order. But yeah, there are little bits that I kind of cheat on to keep me interested.
The Pinch of Magic book is absolutely fantastic, and if I could actually ask, just before I go on to my question, could you perhaps give our viewers a little bit of a premise, a little bit of a synopsis of what the book is about?
Yeah, okay, so this is A Pinch of Magic. This lovely shiny golden foiled cover.
Beautiful.
My editor said it looked like a Wonka bar, which I think is really quite true. It does look like a Wonka bar.
It sort of does.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
So this is about 3 sisters called the Widdowson sisters, who are called Betty, Fliss and Charlie. And it starts on Halloween, which happens to be Betty's birthday. So it's her 13th birthday, and which is quite significant because they think of themselves as being a very unlucky family. And I guess they are. They're always sort of in the wrong place at the wrong time. And they discover on this birthday that they're actually under a family curse. They can't leave the island that they live on, which is Crowstone. So there is a map in the book as well. So it kind of gives you an idea of where everything is. And if they try and leave the island, they will die before sunset. But they also have 3 magical objects which have been passed down the family to them. So the first is a carpet bag that you can use to transport you anywhere in the blink of an eye. There's also a magic mirror, which is in the shape of a mermaid, that's on the back, which can allow you to see or speak to anyone anywhere. And my favourite is a set of Russian dolls, which is just in the corner there, which can turn you or somebody else invisible. So they decide that they're going to use these objects to try and break the curse, and it ends up being a bit of a disaster. Nothing goes to plan, but you know they go through this sort of a bit of a prison break, trying to get this prisoner out of the prison on the island next to where they live, because he says that he can help them break the curse, and that's kind of where it all really kicks off. So that's A Pinch of Magic.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask, it's a really cliched question, but because I know the answer and I know how super interesting the answer is, I really want to ask it. And that's, where did you get the idea for this book from?
Okay, so the idea for this book came from, it actually came from another book. It's called The Law of the Land. And it's got lots of stories of folklore that are set all over England. And I was actually contracted to write a book by my publisher, and I didn't know what I was going to write. So I was flicking through this, thinking, you know, I must be able to get some ideas from this. And then sure enough, I saw 2 words that jumped out at me, which were Essex and witches. So I thought, right, I need to read that. And it was, there's a little village called Canewdon, which is about 40 minutes from where I live. And there's a story that there will always be 6 witches in the village. And whenever one of the witches dies, a stone falls out of the church walls. So I just immediately loved that story, and I wrote a synopsis and first 3 chapters in which Betty Widdershins found out that she was a witch on her 13th birthday. And then it ended up, my publisher they kind of asked me to come in, which I knew wasn't really a good sign. So I went in and they said, oh, we really like parts of what you've done. We like the, because I'd kind of included the folklore aspect of it, so that Betty was going to be a witch, but every time a witch died, a stone fell out of the church wall. So they liked all that part, but they said, can you make it not about witches, because we've got lots of witchy books publishing already. So I thought, oh no, what I'm going to do? And then I suddenly hit upon the idea of a family curse, and so I changed the witches to the Widdershin sisters, and the church became a prison, and the prison tower, and the stones falling out of the prison tower walls. So that's where it all began. Most of my books do begin with an idea of something that's either happened to me or somebody else, or from something around me. So I use lots of real places and place names in all of my stories. I'm a little bit of a magpie. I think a lot of writers are, really. We kind of pick and choose the best bits, best little ideas and juicy tidbits that we come across and put them in our stories.
Absolutely. I love your use of landmarks in the book. So it gives the book a really nice atmosphere. It's really, really lovely. Are these places you visited?
Yeah, well, I hadn't visited Canoodan when I actually wrote Pinch of Magic. I'd only ever read about it, but I did visit it. I think it was about a month before A Pinch of Magic published, because I wanted to get a photo of the town, the village sign, because it's got a little witch flying through the air on the village sign. So I thought, I need to get a good picture of that. And, I just wanted to visit it to sort of say that I'd been there. So yeah, about a month before Pinch of Magic came out, we did a little road trip, and we went up to the church as well, which was a bit of a nightmare to get to. Because there's actually a story about the church that if you walk anti-clockwise around it, which another word for that is Widdershins, it takes you back in time. You have to walk around it 3 times on Halloween, and it will take you back in time. We did walk anti-clockwise around it, but it wasn't Halloween, so we didn't get to time travel, unfortunately. But yeah, a lot of places. If I can possibly visit anywhere that is interesting to me, then I usually do. There was my book Unrest, my ghost story, that was kind of inspired by a lot of the things that I learned when I visited Chambercombe Manor in Devon, which is full of lots of ghost stories. So that there was a lot of inspiration from that. So I was lucky enough to do a tour of that a few years ago, and we had an excellent tour guide who really, really knew how to tell a story. Yeah,
there's something really inspiring about sort of local tales and legends. What is it, do you think, that speaks to you about folk tales? What do you find so interesting about them?
I just think there's something, I think with folk tales, I like the way that there's sort of different versions of them depending on who might be telling them, and the way that they're sort of passed down over the years, and usually that there's some sort of moral about them, and quite a lot of the time they're a bit bonkers as well. Like there's really sort of strange things. So I mean, I tried to sort of emulate that in the folk tale type story that I put in Sprinkle of Sorcery. So the idea of things going into a cauldron and then being transformed into something else, like a feather going in and then coming out as a golden egg, and even though it sort of sounds a bit ridiculous, when you're reading them, you sort of really end up believing them. And things like Sophie Anderson's The House with the Chicken Legs, the story of Baba Yaga, all that stuff. I just find it really fascinating, and there's usually a bit of a dark, gory side to them as well.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I've just been reading this. Been reading up on the witches in my local area. It's just there's something in the soil. I think there's something in. We're a funny old nation. Those old stories are just brilliant. It's really, really
so many
lovely.
witchy stories. Yeah, there's quite a few in Essex, and obviously this is where the Witchfinder General hailed from as well. Matthew Hopkins was from Essex, apparently. Nasty
Oh, I
piece
didn't know
of,
that.
yeah, not sure exactly where in Essex, but also Chelmsford was the site of one of the biggest witch trials as well. I think there were about 26 people executed in Chelmsford, something like that.
Blowing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is.
Lots of history.
Yeah.
So your new book that's out now, The Sprinkle of Sorcery, is that following on from Pinch of Magic? Is it the same family? What happened to that one? 'Cause that's out now that we can get hold of.
It is. Yeah. So A Sprinkle of Sorcery, it's another story about the Widdowson sisters. So it's probably not too much of a spoiler to say that they do live to see another day at the end of A Pinch of Magic.
Okay.
But it's a completely separate adventure. So you know, you can read this quite spoiler free if you do read this before the first one. It doesn't matter too much because I've tried to make them as independent and standalone from each other as possible. So that starts when a stranger turns up at the Poacher's Pocket, which is the pub where the sisters live, one night, and there's been a prison break earlier in the day, and they realise that this person must have escaped from the prison, and they decide to help her because it's just a child. So they take this girl in and hide her, but then the prison warders come along searching, and because this girl's hidden and she's about the same age as Charlie, who's the youngest sister, they accidentally take Charlie with them instead. And so the other two sisters, the older ones, Fliss and Betty, go off on a mission to try and get their sister back and find out what's happened to her, but also helping this little girl who's escaped as well. So it ends up being this kind of a bit of an epic adventure across the high seas, and they meet pirates, and they go in search of a secret island as well. So there's another map in this one with a secret island at the top here. And again, the Winking Witch, which is like a rock that kind of has like a face in it, and that's based on another landmark in Staffordshire near Leek, which is called the Winking Man. So if you look that up, that's quite interesting as well.
That sounds great. I've got a friend near there, so that is an excuse for a little trip down.
Yeah, there's a pub called the Winking Man as well, which is just a little way along from it. So it's quite a good place to stop off. But yeah, as you drive along the road, it's got like it's basically a giant hagstone. So it's like a rock face with a hole in it, which is the eye. And as you drive along the road, there's a part where it kind of, something on the other side crosses it, so it looks like it's winking at you. That's why it's called Winking Man. So I nicked that, pinched it, and put it in.
Oh, fantastic. So that's the second book. But did I see recently that a third book has been announced?
Yeah, so there's a third Widdowson's adventure called A Tangle of Spells.
Amazing.
Yeah, that took us a while to come up with that title. Yeah, we got there in the end. So this is, again, another completely separate adventure where the sisters have moved away from Crowstone to start a new life somewhere, but they end up unravelling all these deep secrets about the village they're in, and kind of a little witchy haven is disturbed, and they find out about these girls that have gone missing, and one of them lived in the house where the Widdowsons have just moved into. So there's going to be a secret room again, which actually I'm stealing ideas from Chambercombe Manor in Devon with the secret room, because there's a secret room in Chambercombe Manor. So again, you know, using a real place as a bit of a basis for this. So yeah, I'm only about 4 chapters in at the moment, so I've got quite a long way to go.
Will we see that for the end of the year? When's that due out?
It's due out in February next year. So I'm just, I need to try and sort of make my deadline really, because it's already looking a bit hairy.
I guess I guess it's hard at the moment in lockdown. It's you feel like you should be super creative all of the time because you have this time, but actually it's not as easy as that.
No, it's not. I mean, normally I do my work when Jack's at school, so you know, having him home all the time, it's kind of, it's completely upset the the balance of the work life, but what can you do?
Yeah,
just work around it.
Absolutely. So obviously we're talking a little bit about the Summer Reading Challenge. Do you have any tips for keeping children engaged? Maybe this is one for the parents, keeping children engaged with reading.
I would say, obviously, because they spend so much of their time on social media, try to sort of, I'd say probably work with that and see, I would say work with the social media, because there's a lot of bookish accounts that you can follow, and there's really fun stuff to do as well. So there's lots of authors on Instagram and Twitter. I am on both. So, I've just run competitions, writing competition and a art competition. And there's just so much stuff going on. There's also a thing called Believeathon, which has been going on. I think it's finished now, but I mean, you can still do it whenever you feel like it. And it's really cool. It's got like, it's basically like a read along. So you start, it gives you a map and it gives you reading prompts, like read a book that's the first in a series. And then from that, you move on to one of the other locations on the map. All the places on the map kind of places from books. So it starts actually at the Poacher's Pocket, which is from my books. And then it goes on to the House with Chicken Legs, and then you have to read a book with like a yellow cover or this or that. So
that's great.
I would say to sort of have a look and see what's out there, because there's just loads of prompts, and there's loads of inspiration, and there's just so much bookish stuff going on. I think that you can't really fail to be enthused about it and want to take part.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that would probably be my advice.
Yeah, that's great advice. And actually, I was looking at your website earlier as regards to children's book recommendations. You've got some fantastic ones on there. Would you just share a couple of them with us now, ones that you've enjoyed as a child, or maybe that you would recommend now, obviously apart from your own?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I've got a pile with me actually. So, so a couple of my favourite kind of folklore books are, the first one is called The Merry Bigot by Julie Hearn. This is actually an older cover. It's got a new cover on it now, which is really lovely. This one's lovely as well, but it's got a different cover to this. But this is about witch hunts, and it's got kind of fairies in it as well, which sounds a bit random, but when you read it, it works really, really well. And it's just one of the most magical stories I've ever read. And I like it so much I've read it twice, which doesn't happen very often nowadays. There's also this one which is called Poison by Chris Wooding, and this is about a girl whose sister gets stolen by fairies, and she goes off to find her and bring her back. But it's really dark in places. So there's a character in it called the Bone Witch, who's absolutely terrifying. But yeah, I really recommend this if you like dark and spooky reads.
Lovely.
For something a little bit lighter and a bit more recent is Starfell by Dominique Valente. This is really good fun. This is all about a witch who called Willow Moss, who her power, so all of her family have magical powers, and she thinks that she's got the most rubbish power out of all of them, because her power is to find lost things. And it ends up, she ends up being really important, because a whole day goes missing. Last Tuesday goes missing, and she's the only one who can find it. So it's really good fun. And it's got lovely illustrations in it as well. So some lovely little illustrations by Sarah Warburton, I think. Yeah, Sarah Warburton. And it's got a cat in it. Well, I shouldn't really call him a cat. He's a kobold, which is a monster under the stairs who's really grumpy, called Oswin, and he's my favourite character. And a couple of things for younger readers. Pickle Witch and Jack. This is the second book by Claire Barker. So this is Pickle Witch and Jack and the Cuckoo Cousin. These are really, really good fun. Claire Barker is absolutely bonkers, and that comes across in these stories. It's just really, really funny. It's about a cake-loving witch who decides that the boy who moves into the house, whose walnut tree she lives in, she decides that she's going to make him her best friend, and he's a real goody-goody. He doesn't like breaking rules, so it's kind of a bit mayhem and mischief. And finally, the Squishy McFluff books by Pip Jones. These are absolutely gorgeous. They're all told in rhyme, and they've got illustrations throughout. So I'd probably say these are more kind of little bit younger, like 5 to 8, but they're really clever. And it's all about a little girl and her invisible cat. And we're not sure whether Squishy is actually invisible and he's really there, or whether she's just kind of using him as an excuse to do all the naughty things that she really wants to do. But they're just really good fun. So I really recommend all of those.
Great for summer reading.
Oh, and one last one. Sorry?
That's great for summer reading challenge, those ones as well. Really good fun books.
Yeah, they're really good, really fun. And this is really fun as well. So this isn't out until October. It's called The Beast and the Bethany. So this is a proof copy, which I've had sent to me, which is an early reading copy. And I'm about halfway through this at the moment. I'm really, really enjoying it. So it's a debut. It's by Jack Meggitt Phillips, and it's illustrated by Isabel Follath. And it's basically about a man called Ebenezer Tweezer, great name, who he's 511 years old, and he's got a beast in his attic. And every year, every day, he feeds the beast things, and in return, the beast vomits out presents for him. So every year, the beast vomits out an anti-aging potion, so that keeps him young. And he has to feed the beast things that the beast wants to eat. So the beast decides that he wants to eat a child. And unfortunately, Bethany is the unlucky person that he chooses. So Bethany is an orphan, but she's actually a real brat. She's a piece of work. So the beast kind of decides that he doesn't want to eat her. He wants her fattened up a bit. But it's really, really funny. It's really bonkers. And I think this is going to be a real hit. So do look out for that one, The Beast and the Bethany.
Fantastic exclusive. That's great. That sounds really good. I want to read that now.
Yeah, it's good. I'm enjoying it.
So for any aspiring writers out there, any young people who might like to try their hand at writing as a career, what advice would you give them?
Firstly, to read lots and lots, because you're going to pick up so much from reading without even realising that you're learning. So every book that you enjoy, you'll absorb that, and you'll kind of, without even realising you're doing it, you'll think, well, why did I enjoy that book? Is it because it started with a flashback and then filled in the blanks? So you'll learn about lots of different ways to tell good stories. And equally, with books that you don't enjoy, you'll kind of learn not to do that in your own stories. So yeah, reading is the number one thing. Second is practice. So if you can get involved in any writing, like writing for a school newsletter or a magazine or something, then that's a really good way to practice. Also, you could write your own blog or something like that. And short stories are how I started. They're a really good way of making sure that you've got a beginning, middle and end, because what a lot of people do is they'll start a story and then not finish it, and then you'll end up with loads of unfinished stories under your bed, which happens to a lot of people. So yeah, it's a really good way of getting into the habit of finishing what you start, and then you can kind of gradually, when you're up to a bit more of a challenge, you can work that into making a novel and doing something longer. But I think those are all really solid ways to start. And look out for competitions as well. There's lots of writing competitions that you can take part in, like the 500 words, and just other bits and pieces that crop up throughout the year. If you've got something to aim for, it's a really good feeling if you get somewhere with it. And even just to complete something as well with like a deadline and a challenge is really good practice, because if you do make a job out of writing, then deadlines will be a part of that, which can be a little bit hard to come to terms with at first. Yeah,
that's great advice.
Really good advice. So obviously you write the stories, and we've talked a lot about the writing, but I must admit, they say never judge a book by its cover, but I am always seduced by covers, and your latest Pink Magic range, they are beautiful, those covers. Did you have a part in that? How did you get such beautiful books? They're gorgeous.
To be honest, it's more luck than anything. So what happens really is that the publishers, like the editor, will kind of tell the art department at the publisher what the story's about, if it's fantasy, what kind of story it is. And then they'll look at other books which are similar, for a similar readership, and look at what other covers are like. And then they'll look at different illustrators and sort of try and probably narrow it down to a short list of a few. and then decide who they want to go with. And then along the way, the author might see like a pencil sketch or something in black and white to say, well, this is who we're going to use. Here's their website for you to look at examples. And this is the sketch they've done for your book. Have you got any feedback? Sometimes they'll listen to feedback. I was very lucky with A Pinch of Magic, because they showed me 4 black and white sketches. They were actually going to use something similar to what appears on the back. So they were going to do a mermaid mirror, but the one that they were going to use was kind of more angular, like a diamond shape rather than the round one. And they wanted to use that, but they'd also sent a sketch through of the tower. So straight away when we saw the sketches, me and my agent said, oh no, the tower one, you know, that's much more central to the story and the curse. So please, could you do the tower and maybe put the mermaid on the back and put the blurb in the mermaid?
Yeah. And
I wasn't expecting them to do that at all, but they did. And yeah, everyone kind of says how wonderful the cover is. So the illustrator is Melissa Castrillon, so she's done loads of brilliant covers. So yeah, I think really it was just kind of a matter of luck. So normally it's the publisher and especially the sales team at the publisher who decides, but you do get the chance to kind of give your comments and your feedback. So yeah, it's nice.
Really beautiful.
Yeah, they are lovely books. Okay, so we're coming to an end. Obviously, we talked about the 3rd book in the Widdershins saga, but is there anything else coming up for you?
Yeah, I've got a new series publishing with Stripes, Little Tiger Group, actually, on the 1st of October. And that's a younger series. So the series is called Midnight Magic, and it's about a magical black cat called Midnight. The first story starts when she's abandoned by her mum and her siblings because they're non-magical, and they can see that she's going to end up getting into lots of trouble, which she does. So they kind of take off and do a moonlight flit and leave her in this barn where she was born, and then she bewitches this broomstick, which ends up being called Twiggy. So it's Midnight and Twiggy looking for a home, and then they come across this little girl called Trixie who is delighted to find this kitten, and she wants to take her in, not realising that she's magical. And of course, when she finds out, she's absolutely thrilled about the fact that she's magical, but it's kind of what happens when her dad and Nan, who live with Trixie, discover that she's magical, and will they want to keep her. So so that's the first book in a series. So at the moment there are 3. I've just finished writing the 3rd one. Elissa Elwick is the illustrator, and so they're more for like 5 to 8 year olds. So I'm quite excited to see what happens with that, because I've not written for a younger audience before, so it's something a little bit different for me.
Brilliant. That's very exciting news.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations. That means you're writing for younger children, mid-grade, and then of course teenagers. That's great.
Yeah.
You've got a whole range. That's fantastic.
Yeah, fingers in lots of pies. I think that's the best way to be. What happens with them all.
Terrific. Okay, well that's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
so just to say to all our our followers and viewers or whatever customers, Summer Reading Challenge is happening on the 5th of June.
Yep.
You can read as many books as you like this year, and we would thoroughly recommend that if you can, you read some of Michelle's books, because they are absolutely fantastic reads.
Yep.
We're huge fans, so thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Michelle. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Great, really good to talk to you again. Fantastic. And hopefully when we go back to the old world, we can have you back to visit our libraries like you did before in the future.
Oh, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Not at all.
Thanks everybody.
Okay.
That's great.
So
then.
so what now?
That's it. Okay, so then we can edit it. So what we do, shall I let you know at some point we'll put it out on, because you also sent through a motivational video for us as well, didn't you? So thank you. So
yeah,
we've got this schedule going on, and we're send you a quick email so we've got YouTube, haven't we? Down YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, so we put it out on one of those platforms so that you know. And then actually I just bought recently your some more Pinch of Magic on ebook, because then we're trying, obviously at the moment the libraries are closed, so we try and promote our video, but you know, they can pick them up from the bookshops as well. So we're trying to sort of do a weekly whammy, you know, where we make sure we got your books online, and sort of promote you as well. So really appreciate your time. It was really fantastic. Thanks.
Oh, brilliant.
Really
Thank you.